You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast, hosted by the founder of Better Beings, Michelle Zellner. Michelle's experiences have equipped her with knowledge and perspective, and for nearly 3 decades, she has been informing, influencing, and inspiring thousands on their journeys. This show spotlights guests of diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise, but they all align with Michelle's purpose and passion to help you be a better human being. There is something for everyone on their way to a healthier, happier life. Enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Be a Better Being podcast. This is episode 138, being released on May 26th. And I am just going to start this by saying, this is the person I want to grow up to be. Janet McConnell is a healthy longevity advocate, fitness educator, author, and speaker dedicated to helping people age strong and thrive. Her journey began with a personal health transformation that reshaped her life, leading her to empower others through evidence-based strategies for longevity. Janet emphasizes the key pillars of lasting health, showing how small, sustainable habits can lead to a vibrant, fulfilling life at any age. A bodybuilding competitor approaching age 70, Janet is living proof that it's never too late to build strength, vitality, and resilience. And because May is Movement Month, Physical Activity Month, I mean, my listeners know this is one of my favorite topics, and to get to talk to you is going to be such a delight. So Janet, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. What a great introduction. I need to, everybody should hear themselves introduced at least once a week. It's such a boost.
I agree with that, actually, as when I do public speaking and someone introduces me, I'm always like, wow, that girl sounds pretty cool.
It's kind of like the idea when you get a standing ovation and you're like, everybody should have this one time.
Right? Like, they like me. Yeah.
Stand here and soak it up.
Yes. Well, I'm really excited for this conversation because, clearly, as I just stated in your intro, you are 70 years old. You don't look it. So this is why I want to grow up to be you. But I think what I really love about your story is you didn't come to this party right out of the gate.
No.
You were, maybe a little late to the party. So we're going to just be here to cheer on anybody of any age that it is never too soon. However, it is absolutely never too late to embrace movement as your lifestyle. So before we jump forward to where you are now, let's go into that backstory and kind of tell us about your journey.
Well, I love that because I've always said when people say, when's the best time to start? And it's like 20 years ago, but the second best time to start is right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's been an interesting journey for sure. Now I'm going to be 70 next year. Okay. So anybody who knows me is going to say, you told them, I want to make sure I'm being honest, but I'm looking forward to it rather than dreading it. So where did I start? That was your question. I basically, in my childhood, I was very physically active. I was a little iron child, as they called iron kids back in the days, where played outside all the time and was really strong. I could beat the boys my age and older at anything and everything. So I had a lot of pride in that, like a lot of prowess on the playing field. And then as I became an adult, I did competitive swimming and gymnastics, things like that. But as soon as I got a job, I got married and got a job, that was enthralling. And it just completely took up all of my creative juices, my desire to achieve, to be an adult in the world and really show that I've got it, kind of the same competitive spirit, but in another arena. So of course I was great because I really was serious about it. But the cost of that was I wasn't living a balanced life. I was putting it all into one basket instead of making sure that all the other things were taken care of. I didn't understand that was important because I wasn't old yet. I didn't feel the consequences. And so I was in a job where I had to travel all the time. And so I was jet lagged and eating airplane food and hotel room service and never, a lot of the time, half the time I was not eating a home cooked meal. Let's put it that way, and making some bad decisions. But, I had the energy and I felt great and I was getting a little bit overweight, but I didn't worry about it too much. And then at age 46 is when everything shifted. Is that enough of a background?
Well, I love that. And I do want to take a pause because you just described what I call the YBI, the young, beautiful, and invincible, right? Where you said, I wasn't old yet, so it didn't matter.
Doesn't
And
matter.
that's what everybody thinks. Like, look at me. I'm amazing. I can not sleep and I cannot exercise and I can eat out all the time. And I'm so maybe I have a few extra pounds. It's fine. I'm sure I'll worry about that, in a minute, but exactly. And so just for context, we're talking that was like maybe 40-ish years ago or so.
Well, I was 46 when it all came crashing down. So that would be like, roughly 30 years of time.
But at what age you entered the career field, right? You didn't come crashing down the minute you entered. So how long did that last before it all came crashing down?
I entered when I graduated from college. And so probably when I was about 25, 24, was doing some preliminary stuff. But then I finally landed a job that was a serious, great job. And so, yeah.
So we're talking 45 years ago, and I want everyone to hear that because people seem to think today that burnout is a brand new thing. Like this is only happening because of what's going on in the last 5 or 10 years. No, that is the culture, right? That is the grind. That is, like you said, like that competitive, that drive, that desire to achieve. And we throw it all into this one area, which means a whole bunch of other things are going to get neglected.
Right.
And having, somebody like you who recognized, it didn't matter because I wasn't old yet.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're not old, but you are older, right? And you've gone through it. I always tell people, I know it's really hard to project 20, 30 years from now.
Right.
That the things you're doing today are actually going to matter. And I think that's why I'm so excited to have you sharing this story because you are that living testament to all the things that people either are currently struggling with because of what they've done or perhaps are going to struggle with in their future because they don't believe that that's going to be them.
Right. You just don't think that far ahead. We get so in the mix of it as our career launches and even into early middle age. It's like things are great. And I was happy and I was thought healthy, but I think I had a good start in life, which definitely helps. So I really appreciate for those of you out there that are parents to really set the bar high on having healthy foods and plenty of physical activity when kids are small, because maybe by the time they get to be 30 or 40 and start to melt down from not doing those things, they have a little bit of grace, but grace runs out for everyone eventually if they don't stop and pay attention to the machine this biochemical machine that we live in.
Yeah. So here you are now 46 and you said it all came crashing down. So describe what that meant.
Well, I went to my general practitioner doctor for my annual physical, just like everybody should do. And of course, there's the blood work and all of that. And he commented that, well, you've gained quite a bit of weight here. In fact, Janet, it's kind of serious. I would categorize this according to the definition that you are borderline obese. You're not over the line, but you're getting there and you're not backing off. So the trajectory is not good. And so I definitely want you to work with a nutritionist, do some work on bringing that weight down to be healthy. Then we got the blood work. And so high cholesterol, high triglycerides, high everything, and way off the scale, not healthy. And so he just said, girl, I don't know what you've been doing, but things need to change. And he had a little stack of prescriptions, the little papers already filled out, and he was just slid them across the table toward me. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I was still in shock just hearing him say those things. I still felt well. And then I thought, well, yeah, I do. I am kind of tired a lot and I am kind of aching and, it's not perfect, but I was so oblivious and probably in denial. And so I just said, whoa, wait a minute. And then I just kind of got still and I could hear this voice in the back of my head. And I know now it was little Janet. And she said, you haven't even given your body a chance. And I was like, oh, look at all the stuff I did when I was younger and I was healthy. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just eating drive-through and hotel food and, not exercising, sitting on airplanes, sitting in cars, sitting in meetings. Wait a minute. And so I just said, doctor, because he knew me. I'd been going to him for a while and he knew my personality and the kind of person I was. And I said, can you just give me 6 months? And he was like, oh, here we go. Bargaining. Maybe other people do it too. I don't know. But I said, yep, I'm bargaining with you. I said, listen, you know me. I'll keep my word. He goes, 6 months, huh? I said, yeah, give me 6 months to do something and then come back. And he goes, let's make the appointment right now. And you better show up because I know where you live. And so he gave me 6 months grace, put the little prescription slips to the side. And he said, all right, I'll see you in 6 months. Let's see what you can do. And so that is not what doctors usually say nowadays. That
Correct.
was, quite a while ago, but it was doctors. We used to have a more personal connection and a long trajectory of knowing the person who is in charge of your care. So I went back out to my car and I just sat there and just cried. I was almost hysterical. I was, gasping because I was crying so hard. And I'm, that's not me. But I realized that the reason was, first of all, the shock of having to absorb the reality that I did not see as reality. And also, I made a bargain and had zero strategy for how I was going to come through. I had no clue. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to have to figure this out. It's kind of that thing of jumping out of a plane and sewing your parachute on the way down. So went to work that afternoon and my boss said, oh, I was telling her about how things went down. And she said, I have a really good trainer. I mean, at least start there. Here's the number. So I called right then and made my appointment and started working with a trainer the next day. And it was kind of a crazy plan. I probably wouldn't have agreed to it if I wasn't in a panic, but it was 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 a.m. because that was the only time I could work out when I would not be sabotaged, either passively or in a directed way. So I just started that. And it just happened that this trainer there's lots of different kinds of trainers. We all know there's, CrossFit and yoga and powerlifting and all different kinds of trainers. So this just happened to be a resistance trainer, bodybuilder oriented trainer. And I just loved it. I was having such a good time and I got stronger and he was good about guarding my form and making sure that I was consistent and doing everything right. Now, mind you, I did nothing with my diet. I was still eating a half a pound of yogurt covered pretzels in my car and
the health food back then, right? Oh, a healthy snack.
I was eating
yogurt.
Yeah. I was eating junk food and everything. So, but interestingly, just with changing that one habit, 3 hours a week for 6 months, I lost 35 pounds. So I went back to, I was still a little fluffy, but way better. And so I went back to the doctor 6 months later. He did all the blood work and everything was within the range of healthy. The cholesterol was a little high, but he said, we'll watch that. I want to see you in another 6 months because I want to make sure you don't quit. So keep going. And I was like, whew. So then all of a sudden I'm kind of off the hook, it's that really scary thing. And I thought, okay, well, I love this training. I'm just going to keep going. I really liked by then. 6 months you don't even need that long to make it a part of your life. I enjoyed the gym culture, the people around me. It was a private gym. Everybody knew everybody. It was just kind of fun. It was like, a nice little group. So I loved going and I kept going, but I noticed that I was feeling kind of lack of motivation beyond just showing up for the social interaction. And I thought, what's wrong, Janet, is you don't have a goal now. You need another goal. The goal before was to get a pass from my doctor and to feel better that I wasn't killing myself. He actually said, Janet, you have the early signs of heart disease. That was, as a 46-year-old, that's a pretty hard pill to swallow. So, I kind of dodged that bullet. And so I thought, what am I going to, I need a goal. Well, you know how you'll say something like that, it'll show up. So about a week or two later, these two women showed up, and they were training at 6 a.m. just like me, with another one of the trainers right near, working out near me. And Michelle, they were stunning. They were just like, they looked like these fitness models with sculpted shoulders and flat abs with little cubes, and carved legs. And they were a little younger than me, but not that much. They looked so good. And I was just wiped out wouldn't it be cool to look like that? And then I noticed they were doing the same exercises I was doing. They were lifting the same weights I was lifting. They were no stronger than me, no more committed than me, but they looked like that. And I looked like this. And I asked my trainer, what's the deal? I want to look like that. And I go, oh, Janet, I guess I didn't tell you, they're bodybuilding competitors, and they have a show, and they're going to be on stage in 5 weeks. So they're halfway there. They're leaning out. Then they eat this strategic diet. And so it was just like a little brain explosion. It's like, so do you mean to tell me that the only thing between me and that is a strategic diet? Because the thing that bodybuilders do is they do have to, lessen their calories, but they have to do it carefully. Because if you go down incorrectly, you end up losing fat and muscle, both, so that you don't have all that stuff you work so hard to put on your body to display on stage. So you have to eat in a way where just the fat comes off and the muscle stays. So it's kind of like a controlled crash. And you have to have somebody help you that's got an objective eye and can look at you and make sure that you're not veering off course to your detriment. And I said, well, I want the diet. And he's like, oh, no. That's ridiculous. He goes, it's really, really hard. Most people quit and you wouldn't like it. And I said, challenge accepted. You give me that diet or I'm going to find someone who will. And he didn't want to lose me as I was a good client, as from a trainer perspective. I'm like, I would have kept me too, because I was so consistent. I was great, but I wanted something more. So he did. He came through. And a year later, I was on stage for my first bodybuilding competition at age 48. I was 48. It was 2004. Yeah.
That is incredible. Now, during this time, you're still working, you're still traveling.
Yep. It was hard.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah. But obviously you are that competitive person who wants a challenge like that. So how did you make it work with still dealing with real life and now this very big extra commitment?
Well, the food was a big part of it, because that was the one thing, like I said, I wasn't doing. And so I had my diet. And what I did was I worked with the person that did my diet to come up with a set of strategies for travel so that I could carry the food with me. I learned how to do it so that I could get it through, the TSA business. And, I learned that a jar of peanut butter looks like plastique. So don't take that, but you can spread peanut butter on a rice cracker, make a sandwich out of it and put it in a baggie, and that's okay. So there's little tricks like that. But I learned how to travel with food that I could eat while I was traveling, and then learn how to pick healthy choices in restaurants and don't eat in my room, eat in the restaurant, and how to navigate that. So there was that for sure. And then most hotels have a gym. And so you can go and do some of the things to keep up your strength. It wasn't obviously as good a quality of workout as it was with my trainer, but I would be gone for 3 or 4 days. And then I'd come home for a week, maybe a week or two, and then go off again. So it wasn't enough to really slow me down. But I will tell you a funny story. I had a client in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is amazing. The food, it's a lot of fried food and a lot of, and I had to go to this dinner. It was a VIP dinner to kind of vet all of the people that were associated with my client. It was important for me to meet them. And so here I am, and they're serving these platters of fried food. And I thought, oh no, I don't know how, because I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to offend them. And I literally put the food in my mouth and chewed it. And then with my napkin, just and didn't swallow. And then when I got to my room, I ate my food that I had brought with me.
So let's talk about all of that, because clearly this requires an incredible amount of discipline, right?
Yes.
Everything you just said, people know there's gyms at hotels. People know how to make healthy choices at a restaurant. People know how to pack food. Yes. It's not like we don't know this.
No.
So, I mean, how do you create that discipline?
Yeah.
What were some of the mindset shifts that happened for you that allowed you to chew it and not swallow it? Because I bet it was delicious.
Yeah, it was.
And in those situations, like I hear this all the time, well, I had to eat it because my mom made it for me, and I had to eat it because it was no, we don't have to do anything. We always make a choice.
Right.
So talk about that,
right?
That level and that piece of this whole puzzle, because I would say that's probably the hardest piece.
It is. It's that thing. Remember that business book called Good to Great?
Mm-hmm.
It's written by the GM. Is it the GM guy, IBM, or one of those big corporations from yesteryear? But he had that saying in it that was, he called it the knowing doing gap. What you know and what you do. And the job in life is to bridge that gap into doing it. And so it does require some grit. Now, what I would just describe to you is the extreme. And none of my fitness clients are interested at all in spitting out something delicious to stay skinny.
And I do not endorse that. I don't encourage it. In some ways that is disordered eating, right? You are doing it for a very specific goal.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely do not encourage that as a lifestyle strategy.
No, sure. And I've never had to do that since, because I was able to change my job, change what I did so that I was home more. I did do some, work behind the scenes on that. And I thought, I can't do this again. This feels kind of sketchy, because I was eating all my calories. I was eating everything. I wasn't anorexic. But that was weird. So how do you get that? So it's recognizing the knowing doing gap. It is the idea of absolutely falling in love with the process. We become very enamored of the goal. Like, this is where I want to be. And that is that. I'll be happy then. I'll be satisfied then. That usually doesn't work. I mean, you want to fall in love with the goal and then put it away and focus on each step to get you there. And all the steps that get you there, you have to love those too. I've heard it said that if you don't love the journey, the destination won't be as satisfying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my mottos, is embrace the journey, right? Back in January, I had Adam Reber on, and he said like exactly the same thing that we talk about. We're fixated on the outcome. Yeah. We're actually, all of the joy and the learning and the growth, right, and the accomplishment, like the sense of pride, is in the process. It's not in the outcome.
Yes.
It's exactly. Actually in the process. And usually the process is hard, and that's why we don't want to do it. We just want the outcome, right?
Right.
And yet most things that are of any value come because you worked hard for it, or you sacrificed something for it, or you invested in it. That's the only reason we do value it, is because it took something else from us, right, to devote to it to get that outcome.
Yeah. The growth and the pride in the little wins along the way, the confidence you get when you clear a hurdle and you're like, this is amazing. And you just kind of look around you and go, I'm so far. Like, when somebody climbs Everest, you ever watch those people that have the GoPro and then they look back and you're like, oh, wow. But it was one step at a time that got them up there. It's very similar.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of celebrating wins. One of my little pet peeves, and I get it because I used to do it too, is when people dismiss and diminish their hard things, right? They'll say something like, I just this, or I only that.
Mm-hmm.
We're justing and onlying or they'll comma but. I call them the comma butters.
Yeah.
Tell me something good, comma but. Tell me all the ways it's not good enough.
Comma but.
You're a comma butter. They're everywhere. Comma butters are everywhere. Trust me. And you probably work with some because you'll hear it. Now that I've said it, you'll hear it. I remember this for myself. So, grocery stores, they have samples, right? And you get a sample and they feel obligated to buy what it is. And I was in a store and there was like a table of cookies, sample, and sweets are my thing. And I looked at them and like, I'd been working really hard to just button up my nutrition and deal with my sugar situation and all the things.
Yeah.
And I would, maybe like, okay, I'm going to walk the whole different direction because I don't want to pass the table because these cookies are just going to like find their way into my mouth. And okay, so we're not going to. And then I thought, you know what? No, you're actually farther along than that, Michelle.
Yeah.
I walked right by that table. Would you like a cookie? No, thank you. And I walked right on by and I thought, you're there.
You're like,
oh, you are there. Now, for somebody who like doesn't care about cookies, they're probably like, why are you celebrate? Like, no. This is hard for me.
Yeah.
And so
something too.
Right, so years after that, I had a coaching client and she said almost the exact same. She didn't know my story. She said, and she's prefaced it with this, this is kind of silly, but right, here we go, comma, but this is kind of silly, but, and then she literally told me the exact situation that I celebrated for myself. And I said, there is nothing silly about that. Nothing. You should be very proud of that and don't ever diminish something that you have overcome.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need it. You need it for those dark days when you're really just feeling so uninspired. There's days when you're just like, maybe you didn't get a good night's rest. Maybe you had an argument with somebody who matters to you. I don't know. It could be anything. It's demotivating. And then you're just like, oh, screw it all. I'll just, and you need to, remember last week when you did that? So journaling is important. I was going to mention that journaling is a good tool. And the other part of that, besides falling in love with the process, is to take the big thing and break it up into bite-sized pieces so that you can just conquer one little thing, get really good at that, and then say, okay, you come over here. I'm going to work on you now, and just keep adding in. Because if you try to I'm going to lose 50 pounds, I'm going to train 3 days a week, and I'm going to eat salads, and I'm going to it's too much, and you burn yourself out and you fail at one thing and it blows everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That all or nothing mindset, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
It never gets you where you want to go. And yet people seem to think like, oh, no, it will.
Yeah.
It will. No, it won't. It's just, It doesn't work that way. And yet that's the challenge, right? Because we want this result.
Yeah.
And if I don't see the result when I think I should see the result, well, then it's not working.
Yeah, right.
No, that's actually not it either. Right?
Yeah. The whole thing doesn't work because the whole thing it was just too much to chew. And so it is important to do those. It's like a book, Atomic Habits, that breaks it down. That's a good reference for people if they're trying to sort out, where do I start, which habits first and such. Yeah. So, like I said, at the beginning where I did the 6 months of training with no worry about the food, but it was kind of good in a way because I established that habit so hard that I wasn't going to stop. And then I'm like, oh, wow, the food. Okay, now I can take that on and I can learn how to do that and succeed at that. I didn't have to worry about the training because I wasn't going to stop.
Yep.
Mhm.
So here you are, 48, you did your first show. How, let's go from there. How long did you continue to compete in bodybuilding? When did you shift into doing what you're doing now? Let's go into that phase of life.
Yeah, it was interesting because when I competed, it wasn't long after that I quit my job. Because here's the thing, when you transform your body, you transform everything. The body is very powerful on your psyche. And I didn't know that. But all of a sudden, my life was just blowing up in a good way. But I was confidently making decisions. I'm going to take this job over here. I'm paid more and they want me and I don't have to try. It's like it just opened up, like there's these things that will just open up when you realize you have somebody at the very boss who pointed me to the trainer was trying to sabotage my ability to train, and it was like, it kind of surprises you when you start to make progress. You will encounter people. It's almost like your psyche is saying, let's see how serious you are. Okay, try this on for size. Here's somebody that you respect. It's going to give you pushback. What are you going to do? So yeah, little challenges like that. I got a better job. Then I started to really be this transformation was kind of blowing my mind because I could see around me that my life was changing and all I did was shift this one area, but it bled out into everything. And I started to have more confidence, began to speak up for myself, began to advocate more because I had biceps. Why shouldn't I? I don't know. That's not it, but something like that.
Well, no, I'm going to say it is it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you have physical strength, you have mental and emotional strength very often. And I'm going to say, especially in women.
Yes.
I have seen people's literally just like you're describing, grow into a new person because they do have this sense of confidence. They have that discipline. They know that they did that work. Nobody waved a wand and now you have this body and now you have this strength. They have it because they put in the work.
Yeah.
And that gives you that self-efficacy that, wow, if I dedicate to things, I get the outcome, I get the benefit. Yeah, I can dedicate to anything then and do that. And you do start to have, a different perception of yourself. And once you have a different perception and love for yourself, other people have a different perception and love or not love for you. Depends on who it is, right?
Right. Yeah. And now speaking about it in a longevity sense, because I'm all about healthy longevity, it is so important for the brain and our disposition and our emotional health when we do hard things. Mm-hmm. It's important to do hard things. Now, it doesn't mean any hard thing. I'm not going to go out and dig a ditch, but hard things, don't shy away. Oh, that's going to be really hard. If you really want the activity and you're afraid of it, it's just going to be hard. Do it. Yeah. And that is one of the things that makes the neurogenesis in your brain restore your brain cells. It guards you against dementia, against, cognitive troubles down the line. Even if I've just done a whole talk on this because there's new studies that have come out just recently. We always know, cardio and nutrition and community are very good for brain health. Well, now in the last 5 years, they have a dozen studies that are double-blind, peer-reviewed that say the most powerful thing you can do for healthy aging is resistance training. Muscle is the organ of longevity. Because
and what's interesting, Janet, is for those of us who've been in the wellness industry for 28 years, we've been saying this for 28 years.
I know.
Right? So now we have some research to back it up, which is great.
Yeah,
awesome.
Right.
I love being validated by things that simply just make sense. Like when you understand how a human body works,
right,
it makes total sense.
Right.
But we're not taught how a human body works. Like humans are not taught how human bodies work. We're not.
Well, speaking to your thing before about, you're just a trainer. What do you know?
Right.
That's one of my favorite. Yeah.
Yes.
Just a trainer, but I know how your body works.
Right.
I know how mine works. And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So that's been my latest soapbox is to make people understand that it's Muscle is the place that protects your bone density. It protects you in stability. It is a glucose dump to keep you from getting diabetes. It's everything.
Yeah. I was on the radio with this woman who has a show she has a show every day, and she invites me on basically whenever I want. Thank you, Mandy Connell. Appreciate you always. And we talked about strength training, and I know for a fact, hands down, the only reason I don't have type 2 diabetes is because I have strength trained pretty much my whole life since a gymnast. Mm-hmm. And I've had muscle. Because when I went through my years of really, really poor dietary choices, like to the excessive extreme with sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, I was definitely headed for type 2 diabetes. The only reason I didn't is because that muscle that is metabolically active, consuming glucose 24/7 is what prevented me from getting type 2 diabetes. I guarantee it.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that wild?
Yep.
And also for postmenopause, it's great because muscle burns so many more calories than fat. So if you have more muscle on your body, you have a little grace on the calories, and you don't tend to put on the little poochy stomach or, the back fat quite so readily, as long as you keep your muscle to a high enough degree and have some discipline in what you intake.
And again, when you're YBI, you're like, well, that won't be me. Yeah. That's because they got lazy. That's because they don't. Sorry, ladies. It's going to be you. It is.
Your body change.
But it doesn't have to be you. That's the thing, right? So let's talk about, maybe people have not embraced this yet.
Okay.
Maybe somebody who is 50 or older.
Yeah.
Just muscle. I don't want to bulk up, right?
Look like a dude.
I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. Great. You're not going to. I promise you. I promise. You have no idea what it takes to look like a bodybuilder. I guarantee you're not going to.
Right, right.
So how do we help anybody, but maybe specifically women, embrace that this actually is going to be one of the best decisions you will ever make in your life?
Yeah, it is. It is bar none one of the most powerful things that has happened in my life for the long haul, the long road ahead. So I think that, yes, dispelling some of those myths we were told, well, because we see in the early days of bodybuilding, there were some women out there who really did look wildly like ripped and very much more in that kind of masculine, feminine realm. And then over time, they developed a new division, more into fitness and figure and bikini and different areas where you can have a beautifully sculpted body and it doesn't look masculine at all. I mean, it doesn't. And I think I remember when I told my husband I was going to do bodybuilding, he's like, you what? Because he was picturing those women that looked a little scary.
Who, by the way, very likely were injecting testosterone.
Absolutely. There's no way.
Taking anabolic steroids of some sort, right? That does not happen because you trained hard.
Right. No, exactly. So lifting is not going to make you look like a dude. One of my favorite expressions is, not lifting weights because you don't want to look like a bodybuilder is like not driving your car because you're afraid you'll become a NASCAR driver.
That's great. I love that. Yes.
Yeah. It's only going to make you firm and strong. And then you will get the little sculpting as you manage your diet and take off a little body fat so that the muscles will stand out. But it's never going to, unless you inject with anabolics, it's not going to happen. It's going to, and everybody comes out a little differently depending on your genetics, your body type, whether you're an endomorph, mesomorph, or ectomorph, it'll come out differently, but it's going to look like you, and only stronger, only better. So that's definitely a myth to bust. Yeah. And also it doesn't take hours and hours and hours to get that way. I mentioned, 3 hours a week. Now, some people might think, oh my God, that's a lot. Well, most people go to the gym. When they go to the gym, they go for an hour, whatever it is they're doing, whether it's cardio or lunges or yoga or whatever they're doing at their gym. But an hour is not very long when you set aside. And I tell my people 2 or 3 days a week of just lifting. And then you can do your other activities, whether it's Pilates or pickleball or whatever else you want to do. But get those 2 to 3 hours in and you're covered. And then just keep doing progressively heavier. Just go at the pace that you feel good at, that you're trying, and that it's hard. And if you've never been in the gym before, and you don't even, it's like a bro environment and it sounds really foreign, hire a trainer for a couple of months, a month or two, and they'll help you. They'll show you what to do. They'll show you what not to do. And they'll introduce you to the gym so you see the variety, and you'll try things you wouldn't have tried going in by yourself. And to pick a good trainer, you want to get on the treadmill at the gym where you like to work out, where you like to go and do your cardio, and watch the trainers. Watch every one of them. How do they act? Which one of them is scrolling on their phone while their client is doing walking lunges incorrectly, so they'll get hurt?
Yes.
They don't care about you.
Right.
Then you'll see that one trainer who is like, never takes their eyes off of you and is gently correcting and encouraging and giving some alternatives of different ways to do things. And that's latch on to that person and just let them teach you. Be a student.
I tell people to be on the lookout for the counters and the crickets. Right? The trainer who counts reps, like out loud count. Oh, when I'm working out and I'm next to somebody who's training a client and I have to leave, I cannot listen to you count. Like I just can't do it. Or it's total silence, not saying a single thing to them. I'm like, counters and crickets. Nope.
Counters and crickets. I'm going to adopt that. That's funny.
Yeah. And to your point of, an hour a week, or maybe they don't have a gym close. It's not accessible. Here's the thing, y'all. You don't have to go to a gym. You have a body. You can do squats and push-ups. You do squats and push-ups Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
Better than doing nothing. So here, let's not let the all or nothing mode get ourselves, doing nothing. Because all that is an excuse. That is all it is.
Yes.
There's always something you can do.
Yes.
You have to be a doer. You gotta do. Right? That's the thing. And
knowing doing gap.
Exactly. Every day you delay doing it, you are simply delaying the benefits that you're going to get. And then you're going to get to a point and you're going to say, oh, I wish I would have.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I should have. Yeah, I really could have.
Yeah.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda mode. Nope. So don't wait. Why are you waiting? I know there are people who are listening to this right now and they know I am speaking directly to them. They know it because we've had this conversation for literally years.
Yeah.
Years.
Yeah.
Oh, I will. Oh, I know I need to. I'm going to.
Right.
I haven't.
Yeah. Right. Keep your word.
Keep your word to yourself. Like this is one of the nicest things you could ever do for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't lie to your best friend. Don't lie to yourself.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So in the next few minutes before we officially wrap up, anything that you want the listeners to know that we haven't covered, whether it's your best tip, it's, some advice, it's just anything you've learned that would really resonate with people, let's do it.
I think that it's what we've said so far is it covers a lot, but I think that it comes down to really being able to visualize what do you want the final trimester of your life to look like. Decide what are the things, because one of the things that people are afraid of getting, I always say people are more afraid of getting old than they are of dying. Because why? Because you see people ahead of you down the road and you don't like what you see. You see people having to give up what they love, lose their freedom, lose their agency, and have to be weighted on hand and foot, be shuttled off to a home, all these things. It sounds awful. It
is awful.
Yes. It looks, if we watched our grandparents, go through it, maybe parents, depending on your age. So it's so important that if you can just decide, what is it I want what do you love right now? So kind of getting outside of the resistance training, having to go to the gym mindset and realizing, I love hiking. I love mountain biking. I love picking up my grandchild over my head. I love traveling and being able to lift my own luggage up into the upper rack and not turn my ankle on cobblestones, be able to climb the non-ADA compliant stairs. I have a client that had to go into the pyramids and you're going downhill on a ramp, crouched, she has MS. She could do it because she trains with me, but so what is it that you love that you don't want to give up? Train for that. That's what you train for. If it's golf, if it's, whatever, it doesn't matter. And that is sometimes the biggest motivator, because then people will start working toward maintaining and being able to sustain what they love to do. And then maybe we'll branch out and become a little more strategic. Like if you love playing pickleball, you don't want to tear a rotator cuff. You know what? If you lift in the gym, you might avoid that, so doing the training to support the activity that you like to do is also true. So
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think also, if you've already gotten to a stage where you've had to give up things,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
depending on why you had to give it up, right? There are things I've given up because it's just not worth it.
Right.
I could physically do it. It's just not worth it. But maybe there are things you no longer are doing because you don't have the physical capability, because you've let your fitness go.
Right.
Here's the thing. We are super resilient.
Yes.
You can get it back. You really can.
Yes.
So if you've given something up that absolutely brings you joy, let that be your motivator. Get it back. I love how you frame it, that this last trimester of life.
Yeah.
The quality of your life is very largely dependent upon the choices you make.
Right. It is. You have more time at the last trimester. You will have more time for yourself, progressively, and you will have more freedom. And then you're stuck and you can't do those things. And it's like, great. So longevity isn't enough. It has to be healthy longevity.
Right.
The health span. Lifespan doesn't matter at all if you don't have your health span.
That's right. I love it. Janet, as I knew, this was a delightful conversation. So appreciate you coming on and spreading this message. And it's one that I say over and over and over every day, but to have it come from someone who's got just a couple of decades on me, not that many. I feel like I'm going to be turning that corner sooner rather than later, which is bonkers to think about. But I know when I turn 70, I'm going to be thinking of you. We're probably going to be hanging out.
Why not?
Likely, given how you're doing life. And that's what I'm trying to do with my millennial friends as well. Like they're all like, look, I'm going to keep up so that when you're my age and I'm 18 years older than you, we're still hanging out doing things. Like,
right.
This is it. Right. So I love it. All right, everybody. That is it. It is now literally just your turn to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. We hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.